Welcome, coaches. Welcome back to episode 2 of Bigs Rule the World, the only YouTube channel dedicated solely to offensive line play. We are actually launching with episode 2 a deep dive series into the wing T offense. We had a poll last week at our Twitter channel, which you can follow at football_Allen because I'm Coach Allen. We had a poll last week, sort of which offense we wanted to deep dive first into. And the wing T won. It beat out the Veer in a very close race, and that's what we're going to dig into today with the wing T offense. So we're going to be doing a little whiteboard work. We're going to be doing a little screen share with the PowerPoint I got set up. But really what we want to do in this first episode is just introduce you to the offense. The wing T itself is a very fun offense. I'm going to get a little bit into my personal history with the wing T and a little bit into the history of the wing T today. We're going to talk a little bit about the base plays, but we can't really go over everything in one single YouTube episode. So I want to save that and bring you back. Hit subscribe as we go through the base plays and how you can adapt them to your offense. So let's take a look as we deep dive into the wing T. All right, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share with you presentation I've been working on, wing T offensive deep dive. And we're going to introduce you to part 1 today, which is how we introduce the wing T. First thing I wanted to talk about is 3 books that you might want to look at, or 3 resources. If I can give you some resources that might help you. I don't want to pretend to be an expert in the wing T offense. It's not the base offense that I run per se, but my offense has a lot of elements of the wing T in it. But these are 3 books or 3 resources you might want to go to, just quick synopsis on them. I put links in the subscription for the video. Hit those links, check them out, check out a lot more resources. You got the wing T from A to Z, which is the volume 1, the base plan by Dennis Crean. He also has volume 2 on installing the system, which gets into more position-based specifics, but I like wing T from A to Z because it gets you introduced to the system and the series-based plays, which is one of the cool things about the wing T offense. In the middle there, you have basically the Bible of wing T football, the Delaware Wing T in Order of Football by Tubby Raymond. If you just want to deep dive into one of the biggest names, I won't call him the creator of the wing T because we'll talk about that a little bit more in the history of the wing T part of this video. But if you want to deep dive into one of the major players in popularizing the wing T, and there's a reason it's called the Delaware Wing T, then you can go deep dive in his thoughts in the Delaware Wing T in Order of Football. The Complete Wing T Offensive Line Playbook, also another great one. I like it because it simplifies drills, specifically shoulder blocking, which we'll talk into when we get into our video part about making of an offensive lineman in the wing T, because that's what we're talking about here on Bigs Rule the World is offensive line play. And what makes a wing T offensive lineman? All that stuff that we're going to be getting to later on this series. But if you're interested in any of those 3, hit the link in the bottom. Okay, why is the wing T special? It's the ultimate bastardized offense. And what do I mean by that? I'm actually going to stop the share right now and bring you back here so you can talk to me for a little bit. What do I mean by the ultimate bastardized offense right there, okay? Well, the wing T, I think if you take a look at it, has a lot of elements that are in play today. A lot of elements that are in play into many different offenses when we talk about trap, when we talk about power, when we talk about the buck sweep, when we talk about belly, when we talk about down. Okay, these are all base plays that we're going to be talking about the wing T. And I feel like they've sort of worked their way into sort of a bastardized element into a lot of offenses. I think you hear a lot about it now. I mean, if you listen to guys like Rick Stewart, you listen to guys like Ron Mackey, I'm not trying to throw names out there and pick on them, but Rick Stewart popularizes the pistol wing T offense. Okay, the pistol really wasn't a part of the original wing T, but it became part when people wanted to bastardize, sort of make it their own. Okay, and I will never look at bastardizing an offense as a bad thing. To me, it's a good thing. I'll tell you right now, we're going to go up here to the whiteboard for a little bit. I'm going to move my son Braden out of the way. Go right. Little note on kids and coaches who have young children. Do this type of stuff at night or away from time with your kids as much as you can. It's like midnight when I'm recording this and I don't have my son tonight. I'm not going to use my time with him to spend time with y'all. That's just something I've learned being a dad for the last 2 years. Some of y'all old heads would probably tell me I'm absolutely correct. But, okay, so if I'm going to run my offense, okay, of course we're going to run power. Of course we're going to run your short trap. Okay, boom, boom. Don't you love short trap? I even got into it, okay. I'll talk about this more when we get to the Buck Sweep. Last year, I'll pull out some video. I actually ran this more in 2018. Okay, this is my Y, my slot over here. Okay, I'm trying to make sure it's coming up. I got a little bit more light to play with. Okay. Cut that light back on. All right. I got my slot right here, so I actually popularized. Got some big plays. Put my H in there, so we're going to block down, block down, block down. Okay. And that's just the old, you go back to what West Virginia did on Clemson years ago in the Orange Bowl with a little flick pass. We did that with Buck Sweep blocking. And I'll actually put that clip on here when we get to talking about the Buck Sweep. What's all this? It's not traditional wing tee. It's a bastardized version of the plays and a bastardized version of the rules. But let's get, why is the wing tee special? Okay, I'll go back very quickly to my screen share, okay? Why is it special? Well, it's easy. It's the ultimate if-then offense. This is why I love it, okay? One of the things I think offensive coordinators have tried to do, I tried to do this when I ran the air raid. I tried to do this when I ran my own offense, is try to do, okay, if you're stopping this, then you're susceptible to this. Offensive coordinators, I really encourage you to think that way. If they're stopping this, there has to be a counter play that comes up that they can't stop. And that's what I love about the wing tee. It's all based on series. The plays look like each other. The series, you know, if you get into a traditional wing tee coach, he can tell you based on who made the tackle what play to run, because they're going to be susceptible here. That's what I like about the wing tee, and it's also easily applicable to modern day players and offenses. I've talked about how it's the ultimate bastardized offense, and players wise, it's a lot of down blocking for us offensive linemen. It's a lot of deception. And I think you can, on the down blocking, on the pulling, I think you can get by with smaller linemen. I think you can get by without a big play tailback. Okay, and that's going to come into why the offense was created. Now, this guy right here, this is my head coach, Craig Gill. This talks about my personal time with the wing tee, okay? Why do I want to talk about Craig Gill? I played for Craig Gill back in the mid to early 2000s. Actually, I guess in the mid to early edge of the late 2000s, okay? I played for him at Buckingham County High School from 2005 to 2008, and then I coached with him from 2010 to 2015, okay? So this man had a lot of impact in my life as both my head coach as a coach and my head coach as when I was a player, all right? We ran wing tee plays originally based out of the I formation. And why did Coach Gill come up with putting it in the I formation? Well, he coached for years at a place called Andrews High School outside of High Point, North Carolina. Sorry, almost forgot there. He coached outside of High Point, North Carolina at a place called Andrews High School. Okay, they ran the wing tee. Coach Gill came up with the idea to put it in the I. He said when they made it illegal for that wing to cut block. He couldn't get the wing to cut block anymore, so he didn't feel like he could put a good enough player out there to be able to handle big, bulky defensive ends. So what we would do 05, 06, when we were primarily an I formation offense, okay, that's our right and left formation. We would also we would go power I, we would go double tight. We had regular Tonto formation with double tight. Okay, you're saying, okay, that's just freaking I. Well, out of it, we could do stuff like what we would call here, this would be the 5-back, this would be the 4-back, 1-3. So this would be 53 cross block. What we would do, okay, if you had a 4-tech right here, outside end right here, and you're trying to ISO it, okay, that guard's going to have a tough time to reach that 4 or that outside 3 right there. He's going to have a hard time to get him. So we're going to go for a quick down block right there, pull back right here. So they're sort of cross blocking, GT cross block right there where the fullback leads right there. Well, what did that become? That becomes ISO. That becomes our ISO. That becomes very much like the wing T belly play. Okay? Did we run power? We ran power. We'd run power, and then eventually, when we got to more of a spread, we were in our 55, 54, our G-Steam series, where power comes into play here. I'm actually kind of mad after seeing what down is. We never ran it. That kind of upset me, but and of course, we ran power, just like most teams will run out of spread. All right. He got out of the wing T because of that wing blocking rule, but a lot of teams haven't. A lot of teams stay in it. Okay. And we're going to talk about blocking in depth later as we get into the episodes. Okay. Screen share one more time. So that's my personal history with the wing T. Go back real quick. So I've seen it bastardized. I want to talk just formation wise. So what I want to be focusing on here is your traditional, okay, your traditional wing T that looks a little like that. Okay, we have a true tight end in the game. We have a wing back. We have our 2 backs set up just like that. Now, the wing T that I was used to growing up and as a coach, as a young coach developing, is actually more like double slot. We played a team called Goochland High School every year under a guy named Joe Fowler, heck of a coach who's now an athletic director. They popularized the double slot offense. Okay. And, you know, a lot of teams, we also had a team in our area. Joe Daniels' ears are probably burning when he hears about all these teams because we coach in the same district. But this would be the double winged offense. It was different. Okay. Because he would run wing T type plays with this power, with this trap. They love to run belly, just like that. Okay, so they found ways to work with the wing T offense. In years that Joe had a true tight end, like I think they had a guy named Nathan Adams graduated after the fall of 2012, who went on to Eastern Michigan, tight end type kid. They just had some good tight end type kids just come through there where they ran more true traditional, we're going to put a tight end. And when he'd have an athlete back here at quarterback, a guy named Jordan Jefferson there for a while. And he would popularize that by going to the gun. Okay, so that's a way where we get back into the bastardization. You can sort of make it work with whatever athletes you have, which is why I really like the wing T. Now, going to go back to screen share real quick. I'm a history guy. I'm a history major, so I like to look at the history of things. So just a really quick history of the wing T offense. So a guy named Dave Nelson would originally come up with it at the University of Maine. He was a single wing route type of guy at the University of Michigan. He's a head coach in Maine from 1948 to 1951. Then he goes to Delaware in 1952. And it says 56 there. I've seen 56. I've seen 66 mostly. So we're going to actually need to change that. He was head coach there from 1952 to 1966. Picks up a guy named Mike Lude as an offensive lineman in his travels as a coach that then becomes his offensive line coach. Single wing struggles at Maine. They don't have a true tailback. Their tailbacks they put in keep getting hurt. So they're debating about what type of offense they're going to go to. Okay, they need to go to a certain type of offense to sort of help out what they have because they don't have the right people right now to be running the single wing offense. The T formation is a popular one, but it lacks the deception of the wing T. It lacks the deception of the single wing rather. You got to think back, okay, the single wing is the offense that Nelson has grown up with in Michigan. Michigan won a Rose Bowl with it. Michigan, very popular with a single wing offense. T formation offense is big in the NFL at this point. Doesn't have the same deception as a single wing. And if we're talking about the T formation, I'm talking about old school double tights. Here we come at you. Okay, old school T formation offense. They have to change something up, so they come up with a bastardized version of T formation and single wing in about 1950 to try to change up their fortunes in Maine. Okay, by 1951, a guy named Tubby Raymond joins the staff. Okay, you heard me mention him with the Holy Bible of wing T football. Okay, by 1952, it's over. Lude and Nelson have left Maine. They've gone to Delaware. Raymond will stay behind at Maine with Harold Westerman, who eventually come over to UD in 1954. Westerman was the tailbacks coach. He stays at Maine. Raymond eventually leaves in 1954. By the time 1966 rolls around, Nelson retires at 84, 42, and 2 at the University of Delaware, and Tubby takes over as head coach for over 30 years at the University of Delaware, and they run the wing T every year. That's why it becomes the Delaware wing T, is because of Nelson and because of Raymond. Okay, Raymond's known as being the creator of the wing T, but actually it's more Nelson. Okay, that's my little intro to the wing T offense. So what was it created to do? A lot of things like we try to do in high school offenses, guys. We're trying to solve problems. If we don't have true guys to fit positions, what do? We solve problems, okay? Good example, I tell everybody all the time, I'm an air raid guy. I'm an air raid guy for the last 2 years. I just showed you my head coach, and I told you what we ran in high school, and I told you what I grew up coaching. I coached 6 years as an assistant for Coach Gill, then I became a head coach. We had to solve a problem. I would have loved to bring the offense that I was used to, the offense I was comfortable with, over to where I was a head coach the past 2 years. Didn't work. We had to change things up. So, think whether it's 1950 or if it's 2018, you can be sort of creative with what you're doing and figuring out how you can use what you have to do better, okay? Now, just sort of introducing you to what we're going to be looking into on future episodes. I know this episode has been less about X's and O's and more about history and more about why I run the wing T. And it's very weird to hear from me because I'm not a wing T base coach, but I run some wing T stuff. Okay, we're going to do episodes that go over the base plays of the wing T and how you can adapt them for your offenses. We're going to do an episode on belly and down, an episode on power and trap, an episode on buck sweep, and an episode on the extras like your crisscross, your sweeps, your waggles. Okay, we're going to do all those episodes, and then we're going to come back and we're going to tell you what it takes to be a wing T offensive lineman. I again reiterate, I'm not an expert in the wing T, but I know how to run some of the base plays, and I love doing this deep dive study into it. I've had a lot of fun doing it to start. I can't wait to bring you belly and down next time, so you need to hit subscribe, and you need to get on over to Bigs Rule the World as we bring these videos to you throughout the week and throughout the weeks coming up with all of our episodes on the wing T. I'm having fun. I hope you're having fun. You need to follow on Twitter at football_Allen. Hit subscribe. And remember, if we want to score points and we want to win on the scoreboard, we got to dominate up front first because Bigs rule the world. See you, coaches.